Join us in March for a series of 4 creative webinars showing time-saving video editing techniques for Premiere Pro, Avid Media Composer, DaVinci Resolve, and Final Cut Pro. We'll show you how you can use Red Giant Universe in all of these hosts to easily add attention-getting effects to your editing timeline, and accelerate your edit times while still producing amazing visuals.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another session of the Mystifying Post Productions. And today I am joined by Tony Barry. Hey, Tony, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really great. And is it sunny there in LA?
I mean, for once, it actually is. It's been raining here quite a bit. So it's funny you say that.
I forecast weather. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. And today, Tony will give us a treat because he will break down some workflow and some tips and tricks to use Universe inside Final Cut Pro. So if you find yourself jumping from one NLE to the others, it's sometimes sometimes it takes time to get used to get back into your favorite NLE. And the how do you call it? The effects are, the locations of the effects is different. The way you edit is also different. And hopefully today, in today's sessions, Tony will give you some tips and tricks to smoothen that crease out. Right. And as you see in your screen, if you want to check the future webinars and hosted by Maxon Training Team, you can go to maxon.net/events. And there you'll find that there are plenty of webinars. It's pretty much every day from Monday to Friday, one new webinars. Okay. Today we have the Mystifying Post Productions with Tony. And tomorrow Ellie will be live breaking down the project. And this Thursday, there is a special Ask the Trainer. So if you really have questions to ask Maxon trainers, be sure that you attend the Ask the Trainer live this Thursday, right? And don't forget that you can also get a t-shirt. So if you haven't get your t-shirt, please do so. And the shop link, I think you'll be able to see that in your screen. Go to that link and use the code Universe for editors to enter the shop, and you can get one of this merchandise for free. And you probably been asking, oh, how do I get that link? Don't worry. In the descriptions of the YouTube page, and in this particular webinar, you'll see that there is a link to the Dropbox. And in that Dropbox links, there's a PDF file. And in that file, you'll find all the links and all the code needed, right? And don't forget that this show is also recorded. And once we're finished, it will be uploaded to our YouTube page, Maxon Training Team. So be sure to check it out, right? So without further ado, Tony, what do you feel? How do you feel?
All right.
You ready for the session, man?
Yeah, I have no choice. All right. So I guess maybe I should start with sharing my screen, right?
Exactly. I'll share.
And then maybe I'll tuck out of the way right here. And how about let's just go full. Let's just talk about this full interface right here.
Sounds good.
So let me just start with, if you're using Premiere and you go to Final Cut, if you're using Avid and you go to Premiere, you go to Final Cut. If you go to anywhere and then you go to Final Cut, it's very different. So I'm going to do a quick tour, just a refresher for people. or if you've never picked this up before, if you start here and you go to other NLEs, it'll be a different experience for you. If you start in other NLEs and go here, completely different experience. So I just want to highlight that and showcase how do I, you know, put things on the timeline? How do I get my universe effects on my clips, and different ways that this timeline works compared to other NLEs that you might already know. So I'm going to just start right here natively in the top left, right? So in the top left of my interface, you can also, to import, very top left right here, that's where you import from your device or attached hard drives, whatever it is, camera. And then this is where you can kind of browse for anything that's on your computer. So unlike other NLEs, this is very much, it's made by Apple. So of course you need to be on a Mac, right? And then it gets very much into the roots of your computer. So if you highlight any of these, it goes right to your photos, right to your like Apple TV, everything. So it's very much like intertwined into your OS, which can be a very good thing. So let's just start here with, I've already imported things, and the way things import, they can also get bagged and tagged as you're starting. So if you have metadata in there by time code, by whatever it sees, if it sees people in there, if there's 1, 2 people in an interview, all kinds of interesting ways to tag your footage. But that's another whole topic. Let's just go right here to the traditional. I've already imported these, and I used names in all these bins before as I organized them, right? While we were actually shooting these were all organized by these camera reels, right? So natively, it creates a bin, right? So it's creating all these keywords based on the bin that this came from. So this is how it's navigating through these, right? But let me just tell you, by default, right, you're going to see something that looks a little bit different. So if I go here and I click on this little icon with the film strip, by default, you might see something that looks a little bit like this. So if you want to see a single clip, right, it's kind of running away from you, and it might mess you up if you're not used to this. You'll see something like this. All your clips are kind of spread across the interface, and it looks a little bit different. But just know, if you want to normalize this to where you can just see them inside of a single container instead of seeing them spread across like this, then you go here, click on this button, and then drag it from this half a second all the way over to all, so you can see all inside of a single container. Then drag this out so it's a little bit bigger, so we have, you know, some screen real estate to work with here. So I drag that out so it's a little bit bigger, and as I just kind of click across, now I can see all my clips, and this looks a little bit more normal to those who have used other NLEs. So that's kind of the big thing with this. That's just one caveat. If you're using Final Cut for the first time, you're going to notice that now it's a little bit different the way that you work in here. So now that I've kind of normalized my bin here, right? So now you just kind of drag to where you can see most of your clips, right? And then you can also adjust if I want to group everything by the reel it was shot, by the file type. Let's say you have some Sony footage, some Blackmagic footage, right? If stuff wasn't transcoded, then it would kind of live in different places based on what it was. You can also tag the role if it's an interview, if it's B-roll, if it's a different type of coverage, you can tag what that role is, and then also camera names, angles, all this metadata right here will help you kind of navigate. But for me, I don't really need to do any of that because I already organized it ahead of time. So then besides that, let's just go. So now that we see kind of where things live, how they live there, and how they're organized, right? You can also go and let's just go through these menus here. Now, here's another one that I'm going to hint at today is the generators, right? And I'm going to just specifically focus on these right here are solids. And I'm going to use this one right here that says custom. I just made it a black solid. And I'm going to use that if you're familiar with After Effects or you're familiar with anything regarding compositing, if you wanted to put an effect on there, kind of utilize it with a blend mode or utilize it for just the pixel value, it's always good to have just kind of a black solid. So this right here is under install generators, right? This one, there's a lot of categories, but if you click this button again, it kind of just puts you only in that category. And then you can kind of shift through here and see what you need. But you can also, this is where you grab your text from. So if you go to titles, right? Let's twirl this back up. If you go to titles and I just want to go to the basic text, right? You can also right click and make that your default. So you don't have to hunt through a sea of stuff, or you could even search here and just type in basic, all right? Basic title. There it is. Now it's isolated. So titles, generators, these are things that we will use. Some are a little bit eccentric, and some, you can just use right off the bat, and then you can utilize the universe tools to make them that much better. So let's just get back to this. All right, let's take a look at our timeline. So we have some clips, they're already in the timeline, and I'm going to talk about how they're displayed in this timeline and how you can utilize how do you utilize this timeline here, because this timeline is completely different than all the other timelines that you have used in different NLEs. This is the magnetic timeline, right? So inside of the magnetic timeline, these are different ways that you can edit your clips. And I kind of look at these clips as though they were bubbles or shelves. Like each little piece you can put the main idea on your timeline, right? And you can kind of branch out, and that's kind of what I have going on here, right? I have the main timeline. By the way, this is a great little feature, and I enjoy it, but there's times when I really want to turn it off. So this is called the skimmer, right? You can turn it off right here in this area, and also the S key. S key will turn that on and off. The good part about it is it helps you quickly navigate by just hovering your mouse over, but it can also give you a headache if you're over here trying to work on this and then you move your mouse over here while you're working on something here. So you can see where I'm going with that. So S will turn that on and off. For right now, I'll have it off, and I'll just kind of talk through what's going on here. This clip is this is the main idea, and then we're going to kind of cut back and forth. So you'll see our subject here is at the machine, and he's kind of sanding off and rounding off his tool. And then I kind of have that idea popping up out in these little bubbles here. Let me just zoom in. And each one of these are connected clips. And you can see that they have a little branch right here. This one here is branching from there, or I can connect it to here. And to do that, you're just basically going in, and there's a couple different edits. So this is the connect, which is Q. And then this is insert into your main storyline, right? And then this is append into your main storyline. I like to always, the shortcut for it is E, but I like to think of it as E as the end. So when you append, it just goes to the end every time. So if you're like me, I'll tell you a quick little trick that I love. There's also, let me just give you another little caveat here. As you edit things, they're all going to just keep going and you'll have zero gaps. But if you're like me and you like to kind of make your idea boneyard all the way at the back, all right, I like to add what's called just a gap clip. So let's say I'll go over here and I want to just create some distance between these ideas I'm going to put. Let me go all the way to the end, and you can do, there's a really easy shortcut for it. It's Option W, and that gives you this little blank clip, right? But let me just show you how you can get that as well. If you go to the Edit menu, and then you go all the way down, you go Insert Generator Gap. Now that gap clip will allow you to create some distance here, so you can put your ideas a little bit further down the line, if anybody's familiar with this, just so you can kind of protect your main idea and then put things all the way at the end. So if I were to go here, here's another thing to consider when you're working in Final Cut 10, is you can actually do this thing where, let me hit S again, and you can kind of drag across. Holding the Option key, you can kind of select where you want to be. Instead of just doing the traditional I and O, you can do this hold Option and drag, right? And of course, you can do the traditional I and then skim across an O. But if you wanted to, also clear it out with Option and X. But if I wanted to, I like where that is using my skimmer, and I hold the Option and click, hold, and drag. And then I go to right to where I see that, and I've made this little selection here. Right now, I can take that and append that to the end with E, and you can see it went down here. So just to show you that multiple times, even if my playhead is here and I hit the E key, everything is going to the end. So think E like end. And again, in order to like kind of build my idea down the line here, I made this gap clip. And to make a gap clip, you do Option W. So Option W gives me this right here, which has infinite handle, and it's just a way to kind of push things down the line. So just in case for a fact that you want to create this idea, but you don't want it directly attached to what you've already been working on. For me personally, I like to just move things all the way down the line so I can focus. And I like to make this gap clip here and then kind of build my boneyard here. And then all you have to do is like go in here, find what you like, right? And as you find what you like, you can kind of just Option, click, hold, and drag, and then just hit E. Just kind of like quickly skim through, find the parts that you like, Option, drag across, hit E. All right. So now I'm kind of building my ideas down the line here. They're not affecting my story because they're way far away from my story. And you can go in here and you can change the duration of this and make it as long as you possibly want it. It's literally just an empty clip. It's like a spacer. And there's a lot of different ways to use it. So inside of this timeline, think a little bit different when you approach this timeline. So let's talk about effects. Right. So I've already shown you these are the different types of ways to edit. Right. You can edit to your main storyline. Right. And you can also insert or append or overwrite to it. Right. And in here, you can even choose if you're doing audio and video. And then also the way that it handles audio is if you would select these, right click, and you can see it'll expand or detach your audio. So if you want, you can detach audio and it becomes its own little connected clip as well. But for these clips, I don't really need the audio, but just to show you how that works. So the thinking is definitely different. The way that it works is not something that you traditionally might use if you're in other NLEs. And this kind of gets you to a point where now I have my ideas and I want to put some effects on my clips. All right. So let's just go here. I'm going to highlight this clip. And then over here to the right, so you have a couple of different things going on here. This right here will affect your timeline. So if you wanted to grow or shrink your tracks so you can see things a little bit better, if you want to change the layout so you can see things differently, right? So this is like poster frames, or if you want to see all frames, and then also if you want to adjust the size here. But for this, I'll keep it a little bit bigger. And it also will tell you the names, right? Or if you have duplicates inside of your timeline, it'll streak your clips. So, but for this right now, I'm going to zoom this up a little bit and let's change that back. And I'll go here to, this is my effects browser. And then this is my transitions browser. Now, we'll talk about transitions in just a moment, but let's go and actually apply a clip inside of here. And you'll see these are all of my universe effects, all right? And you can utilize search if you want for it. So just type in universe. Got to spell it correctly, of course. All right. Haven't had my coffee yet. So, but I already found this here. So now I'm going to go through and just kind of look at these. And these are the different categories of these effects inside of the universe suite. The great thing about this is that you can get a preview when you just kind of skim across. So this is a good reason to kind of keep that skimming thing on, right? Actually, you could do it without. That's good. But if you're in it, the easiest thing you can do is just kind of keep the skimmer on. If I go here, go across, I can kind of preview what the default of that effect will be and what it actually does. And sometimes, just so you know, our defaults are not necessarily like the best representation of the effect itself. So just because you're seeing this doesn't mean, once you actually tweak the sliders a little bit, it's not going to look just like that. It'll look a little bit better than that, but this is just a starting point for it. So just so you know, when you go across and you look at these things, if you skim through it and it looks kind of ugly, you're like, what is this doing? Why does that even look like that? That's because by default, it's not necessarily going to be, that's just what the default sliders do. So just to put that in there so you don't walk away from an effect based on, oh, it doesn't look so great when I skim over it. These effects are pretty diverse and they have a lot of different methods. So let's just take a look here at this one for box bokeh, and I'll click on it, right? And let's just pull up, see this little settings here. So this is our inspector, and this is where that clip has been affected. I mean, this is what effect has been applied to that clip. And let me just take this away, and I'll just do that again from scratch so you can see. So I highlight this clip, and I can actually just double click the effect while the clip is targeted, and then it applies it here. If you're a fan of just dragging it on, you can do that as well. And the great indicator of that is that you drag it on, and then you see the little green plus bubble. So when you do that, now you know that's on there. Now the beauty, right, of the Universe Suite, right, or all the Red Giant effects is that you have all these wonderful presets. So let's go here and let's just click on choose a preset. And now this will take me to different starting points, right? So these are all different starting points that kind of give you different looks. And this is just to kind of push the sliders to a good spot. You don't have to necessarily use it. You can use this and then adjust it and kind of make it yours. So if you don't like 300, right? And this is just literally it's like using the pixel values at that point. You're not even really like seeing your image. So if you want, all these can be animated. So let's just go here and I'll kind of zoom in a little bit so you can see this, right? And then I'm going to just put this blur angle, this blur amount will start at 0. And then let's just go a little bit further. And I'm going 10 frames at a time, right? And I'm going to start it here. And now I'm going to go and adjust this amount. Let's just type that one into 200. All right, so then when it goes here, it goes to 200. But we can also kind of reverse that. And then you see here, there's go to next keyframe, previous keyframe, right? And we can also pop that up in here and kind of show our animation on what we did. So we can go here and we can go to blur amount. Now you can see your keyframes just inside of this timeline. So if I want to, I can just take that one and reverse it. So we actually have more of this effect, and I'll move that one back and then we'll see. Let me move it over here, move it over there. Let me delete that. How about that? Sometimes, again, it takes me a minute to jump back in because I kind of work within several programs. All right, so here we go. This first keyframe, let's go back to the first keyframe. All right, and let's make that one 200. All right, and now let's jump over a little bit and let's make this one 0. By just dragging the slider down to 0, now I've made that into a keyframe, and there it is. And you can animate that just right here. So you can look at every aspect of it, and you can also kind of zoom in, make this a little bit bigger if that helps. So that's one way to kind of get all of these things more into perspective of how am I going to use them in time, right? So I can drag these over, and you can also just right click delete if you want to. So with this, there's go to the next, right? Go to previous and go to next keyframe, just built right in. And you can also hide this, and now it's kind of tucked in. So now when you look at it, it still exists there, but you just did all your work and you kind of tuck things in. So if you look at any of these things, all of them are more like everything is kind of displayed in a shelf. You can kind of close that shelf. So I think that for me, that's the way to kind of think about Final Cut. It's a fixed interface, but if I wanted to, I can go in here and I can tuck away anything that I don't need to see. So if I've already worked on my effect, now I'm back in editing mode, I tuck that away. It gives me more screen real estate here. And then when I'm ready to work on my effects, it's already there and it remembers where I was last. Now, if I were to go here, all right, let's just talk about how things are displayed right here. If you're using more than one screen, there's a button right here that allows you to kind of choose what goes on the first or second screen, and if you're going to use one or two screens. And then also, if you go here, this is your inspector, right? If I'm not using the sliders or I'm not adjusting clips, and I'm just kind of working with things here and trimming, right? If I'm trimming my timeline here, then I don't necessarily need to see this, right? Because now that's taking away, right? So just think of everything popping out and it's a fixed interface. If you have everything already in your timeline, then you don't need to see any of this right here. You can also see, you can view things in multiple viewers if you want. And so there's a few different options as far as like what do you see? What do you see like as you're working? And then if you wanted to, you can even hop into like a full screen interface. So now that's, if we're talking screen real estate, right? That kind of disappears just like if you were working here, right? So if you have your taskbar set to hide, it's the same thing like this when you're in full screen, right? So if you go to full screen, or if you exit out of full screen, right? Which I think should be escape. So if you hit the escape key, you get out of that full screen, or you can also click here and that enters into full screen. And now it seems like you're immersed into the program. So let me see. I'll pop back up in here just so you can see us. So you can also see Max, and that way you know that Max isn't sleeping. So because I know I can drone on and on and on, but you know it's also fun to keep this interactive. So in the meantime, if we have any questions, you can type in questions into our chat box here. I'm interactive, you know, and I love to talk in case you don't know. But just to kind of go back inside of here, again, I like to turn on and off that skimmer with the S, so then you don't get a headache by just doing this. I tend to move my mouse all around the screen, and that does nothing but kind of annoy you if you're not thinking in this mode. So turn the S on, up and down, you know, on and off, sorry, up and down. So also the home and the end keys going to take you from beginning to end. And then remember I was telling you about it before. If you see these little marks right here, that's your duplicate frames, because I literally duplicated this whole section here to here just to show you the different layouts. So if I were doing anything that involves transitions, right, you would want those frames to be side by side, right? And let me just move this over here, as we're going to talk a little bit timeline now. So what I'd like to do here is, if I'm working on transitions, not just doing the effects, then you want to edit into this main timeline mostly. All right, so do all your edits in that same timeline. Instead of connecting them, right, you want to put them here, or you connect them side by side. So if they're connected side by side, now it's easier for you to do those effects or those transitions. So let me just show you here. I have some transitions, a couple that I like, that I use. And again, you know, in my opinion, like having a great toolkit of different effects really enhances your work, but really it's the subtlety in using these transitions and how they can add some artistic value versus just being somebody's talking about a serious subject and then you have this crazy transition that just kind of buzzes by the screen. But if you want to keep it, you know, kind of artistic, you can make it something a little bit more subtle that goes right to like a graphic. All right, so this one right here, this is, let me just pull it up here in my inspector. This one right here is the spectralocious, right? Spectralicious. There you go.
Yeah.
So,
and I think Jason created some presets for those as well.
Yes, and I'm pretty sure that he has showcased this, and I'm literally going to showcase what I like personally, and because he's been through the whole overview of what these all do. He is the catalog. So one thing that I liked about this effect is subtle enough that it's basically taking everything that you do and making it into kind of like watercolors and then morphing it into the next effect. So it's really kind of gives you this awesome transition of the colors that are already existing in your scene. And then the other thing I would do with this is kind of that one in particular, the thing that's kind of that throws you off a little bit is because you can see the black bars here. So if I were just to change this a little, change my values a little bit. So if we went in from that to like this 108, now when you look at it, it looks a little bit more seamless. And then I'm also using here, I'm using the title motion. Right? And there's also one called logo motion. And that just kind of makes the motion graphics element a little bit easier. If you just need to like jam some text on the screen, or you have a custom logo and you want everything to kind of animate, I'll talk about that in just a moment. But let's just finish talking about these transitions. So this transition in particular just turns things into watercolors almost before flipping it to your other scene. So it's a little bit more tame versus something that looks a little bit more like this, right? So if you're unless you're using a lot of highlights in your video, this one right here, it's great, but there's times to use half light. Half light kind of pairs really well with overlight, and overlight is like light leaks, right? So if you wanted to do something, you have a lot of highlights in your video, there's a way to use it, right? And like, you know, whenever you do this, you kind of pick a style. You don't want to go with this style, then this style, and then this style, right? And then again, whenever you're working with video that has a crop factor, or you're working in a timeline and the aspect ratio isn't exact, right? So what makes this more believable is, see how it kind of goes back down and now you see the black bars again. Let's just get rid of the black bars and adjust this to, like, I guess it's a 106. Oh, it went to 16. 106. There it is. Actually, 108. We'll do it. There it is. So now when you see it, that looks a little bit more believable. And this one right here is our camera shake transition. And again, if you look at these, a lot of great little starting points. And it pops up, lovely. It pops up on my second screen. So I can't necessarily show it with you, and it will not go back to the first screen. Lovely. So the presets that are available for this, right, are more great starting points, but then you can also adjust how you want this to kind of pop up on your screen and just how subtle that you want this effect to be. For this one's a little bit, it's like a move, but it happens to the point where now we're zooming in. All right, so it adds, it's great for something that's congruent, right? So the fact that like we're looking at him from a wide angle here, and now this is kind of the close up, and we're going to a different shot that's actually a panning shot that was on a gimbal, right? So that effect, this camera shake, can be used in a useful way to kind of get us from point A to point B and put us like right into where the action is. So just because it says, again, this goes back to what I was saying before, when you go and you look inside of your effect browser and you just kind of scroll across some of these. Let's just go to, like, there's utility, and let's look at camera shake here. And when I like drag across, I'll just highlight this clip. And if I drag across, it's just kind of like shaking the camera. There's so many different ways to use it. You don't have to use it just like that. So if I apply that to this clip and I choose a preset, and okay, again, my presets are popping only up on my other screen here, but it gives you this useful window. And I think, let's see if I can get it over there. It's pretty stubborn. It just does not want to let me move things over there once I'm sharing. So maybe what I might do is stop sharing my screen. Let me try this for just one quick second, because I'd love to show you that. So I'll stop sharing my screen. Now you can just look at me and Max, right? And then let me apply this, choose this preset. I'll bring it back over here. Huh, funny, it still doesn't want to let me do that. It's living only on my other screen. So let me present again. And I'm going to share my screen. And let me try something different.
Meanwhile, while Tony finding out his screen, another thing that I want to point you out is that anytime you have access to Maxon.net, so for example, you can go to Maxon.net and search for universe. And for example, if you are into like generators, for example, just go to generators and try to hover over each of every single tiles of effects that displayed in universe, and you kind of like see what those effects is actually doing. And that's like literally the nice tips that I nice trick that I normally use whenever I'm away from my computer, how do you call it, software, so to say. So Tony, back to you, man.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for the quick commercial break. So like I tend to use some of these very subtly. I really love the text effects. And then also, like, just so you know, before you start doing any text effects, let's just go back here. And I'm going to pull this one back up. And this, to basically enable, right, is V, right? So you hit V, enable, disable, right? And you get your text, right? Now, I've applied the quantum effect to this text, right? To get basic text inside of Final Cut Pro 10, you go here. And again, it's a little bit different. So we go to generators, right? And in titles is basic text, right? And by default, right, I mentioned this before. I think you can go to, where is it? It's under edit and then insert generator, and you do custom, right? So insert generator, custom, and then that's my default of a solid. And solids are located right here. And let's say I don't want to see all of this. Click this button again, and now I just see the solids. But see how it says custom? Right click, and I made that my default generator. Or if I go back to, let's just take a look at all of them. Go to titles, twirl this back. Let's go to basic title, right click, make this my default, right? So if I were to go here now, and I go to like under edit, insert generator, or actually there's connect title. This is an easier way of doing it. Right, connect title, basic title, or lower third. So you can do that. And the shortcut here is Control and the T. So connecting the title simply means that it's going to go on top, right? And it kind of lives as a bubble that you can move everywhere you want, which is very useful in a sense that it doesn't disrupt your existing edit that you already have. So, but let's just apply a text effect here, right? So I have this basic text. Now let's work with what's inside Final Cut and how you understand it. So this first one right here, if I click here, this is how to edit, right? This is how to edit my title. And it looks just like text. So this is my text adjustments. So I'm just going to call this like Sparks, right? And then let's go and adjust that font. Let's find something that looks a little bit more fun, right? Impact, that's always fun. Right, we're going to change that size, and we can adjust this, and let's just change that tracking. All right, and then you can make these all caps. You can put, these are all the basic parameters to adjust for you to adjust your text. If you wanted to add a drop shadow, and the options for drop shadow are all right here. All right, just to give it a little, make it stand out a little bit more on top of this. And even this angle here, let's see where the angle is. Maybe you want it to do like that or something like that. So this is one way to try to just get all of my basic parameters set. And again, that's inside of this basic text panel. Now, the video inspector, right, inside of this video inspector, when I want to apply my effects, let's go to effects, and then let's go to text, and let's add something to this text right here, right? Or let's just stylize. How about this? I'm going to go to like glow, and then we can make this text glow. We can also do, let's see, unstylized. We can do luster. So let's just grab this and double click that and add luster to it. And now we have luster applied to this, and we can adjust these sliders, and I'll just talk about that here in just a second. So with the effect applied to my text, to adjust the actual text is this, and it looks like lines of text, and that's my text window, text adjustments inside of this inspector, right? Inspector, and then you go to text, and then you also go to the video aspect, and that's where you see the effects for it. And you can also do certain things inside of here. You can do a mask on it. You can also track these things. So let me just go to the option of show, right? And then we can change. We can even add an image, right? If you have an image that I could take a screenshot of this background and kind of make it match, like those sparks belong inside of this. And you'll see a blurry version of that inside of here. And then for this, though, I'll just choose something that looks a little bit interesting. This disco gold, right? And this right here is sparks, right? So it looks a little bit more like sparks, and you can adjust the position right here on screen. And that looks a little bit more interesting. So now I'm adjusting.
Tony.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I think we're not seeing the, how do you call it, the windows that you're opening. Perhaps could you try to take down the screen and then after that reshare it again?
Yep. Hold on one second. So you don't see my screen and sparks?
I see the sparks, but the new windows, like the new model windows or the drop down.
Yep. Okay. Hold on one second. Let me stop this. Go to another quick commercial break.
Let me play the music.
Yeah. All right. So I'll just stop that, and then I'll do a screen share and screen share. Select. There it is. You legit
All
have
right.
music. That is funny. All right. So let's just go right over here, and just to show you. So I've added this luster effect, right? And the luster effect kind of breathes life into your text. It kind of makes things look a little bit interesting. You can also animate any aspect of this. So remember, I was showing you can do that right on top. Show video animation, and then it gives you any aspect of this can be animated, like color position or the angle or how much, how potent the effect is. So you can do all of that just right here. So I'm just going to show you where this is, and I'm just going to make this. I think that looks a little bit interesting. So this is basically taking some basic text and then applying that text, and then of course it doesn't have to go across the whole thing. We'll just kind of tailor this off. Here's the beauty of this program here, is that you can just go to the edges here and kind of pull things back left and right, and it will also, the thing is, if you do that inside of your main timeline, it will ripple your whole timeline. It'll adjust timing. So that's why I'm also a fan of creating these right here with the option W, which is your gap clips. So just to highlight a couple of these text effects, right? Now, let's say, right, there are some things that you can do inside of Final Cut, right? Like let's just show you these. These are some that are already pre-built, and you can make these within Apple Motion, or you can just kind of create them yourself, right? And these are all like based off of Motion templates, right? And these are like, you can take these and animate these. And I've done one, which is, I want to say it's the blur. So blur just kind of does this. It blurs in and it blurs out. And this is something that's just a native effect inside of Final Cut, right? So you can take that blur text and you do something that looks a little bit like this. Let me turn this other one off. So it pops in. Let's see if it does pop in. That's interesting. It's like, hold on. Oh, sorry, it's the bottom one. So this one is, I think, the scale. So let me zoom in. Yeah, there it is. Text spacing 3D, right? And so inside of here, under titles, I think it's, yeah, there it is, spacing 3D. So I took one of these, just kind of dragged it on because it already has the movement on there. And whether you're more comfortable using the native animation tools, or you just want to use the universe effects and then have it applied to something you already made. All right. So in here, you can see I have under the effects, I've applied long shadow. Right, and that's what I'm getting here. The long shadow is pretty popular. I want to say Max uses it quite a bit too. Everything that Max does has a long shadow applied to it.
Exactly.
So if
You're
we go,
cracking my code.
yes, I am. I don't want to give out your secrets. Not too many of them.
I
So,
know, right?
but the idea is inside of here, you have something that's already animated that you already have animated inside of Final Cut. And it's one of those things that are native effects, but now I'm just enhancing this native effect because if I uncheck this, now you can see it's just the regular text. And now I've added that, the uni dot long shadow, right? Which is this one right here. So the idea is you can animate any of the parameters that are inside of the universe effect itself, or you can actually animate using the text effects and create this stuff, based on what you already know if you're using this program. So you can stay within your comfort zone of whatever the native situation is, or you can hop out and use the third-party options, which will be the universe suite, and keyframing any of those parameters is relatively easy. So as far as text effects go, you can apply it to any of this type of text that already has movements on it, or you've made something that you like and it kind of goes with the style of your video, right? And now you're just adding some candy coating to it to make it look that much cooler, right? Or you can do something like logo motion. Now let's talk about logo motion real quick, which is right here. And I literally just highlight a clip and you just apply logo motion to that clip and it pops up with alpha just right over it. And you can do anything with this. There's a couple of different things that you can animate on this. Like what does this logo do while you're, and let me, again, best thing you can do inside of this is when you're using it, pop it out. When you're not using it, tuck it back in. So when you're using this logo motion, you can have it, there's an idle setting, there is animate in setting, and then you can also have it just kind of moving around the screen as it's idling. It doesn't have to just sit there. So if you see here, idle preset, let's go to springy. So now it should do a little bit of animation to that. Let's see, blur start, end start, springy, wobble. Here we go. So see how it kind of wobbles? And this is just like a quick choice that you can make. So it looks more like an organic piece of title, a piece of text that just doesn't sit there. And you can also adjust all the parameters differently. So if I wanted to, see how many parameters there are for just this one effect? It's like motion graphics just built right in. And I don't even have to apply it to like my solid layer clip here. So one thing to know, which I haven't mentioned yet, and the reason why I use these just black clips, which are just solid layers, is because natively Final Cut Pro 10 does not ship with adjustment layers. So if you're used to adjustment layers, there are plenty of third-party versions. You can go into Motion and create something, and then turn that into your own preset. And if you go online, you can find there's probably a million different YouTubers who have created their own version of this. So you can get it. Just know that it's third party, or you need to create it in Motion. But I like to use the solid, which is right under here, solids, right? And I'll use this custom solid, which is just a black solid. And then I use that for different things such as blending back and using composite modes. So if I want just the edges of the screen to appear like light leaks or something that looks like film, I've applied the Spectralicious, right? I said it right this time, right, Matt?
Spectralicious it is.
There you go. Can we get it on the screen, and can you get a ball to kind of bounce on each element of that word?
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, that's the Sesame
Next
Street
Monday.
version. That's the Sesame Street version. So if we go here, I'll just kind of highlight what you can use Spectralicious for. If you apply it by default, right, it'll give you something that, let me just turn this one off and I'll just go and apply it again. That's the beauty of having this right here, is you can hide and show, and then you can kind of audition these effects as needed. So I'll go here and let's go to generators and let's go to Spectralicious. And this is what it does by default. It gives you all the colors of the rainbow, mostly, right? That's your Roy G. Biv, right? But I'm not here to teach you about that. I'm here to show you what this effect will do. Now, with this, just know I have created this solid, and you can get that solid by just dragging it down here as well. But I've already made some as placeholders, and then I've set them up to where how I can use them, right? So let's go to video effects, and you can see I already have it set to 35, but I can turn that to 100, and by default it kind of looks like this, right? But I'm not going to be able to use it in a composite, right, for just its pixel values unless I change this composite value. And you can actually, this is a good teaching lesson to learn. You can look up the way, there's a couple of people who've created these charts on how pixels blend together using blending modes. So if you want to look up blending modes and see just how these blending modes will work on your screen. Like if you use screen mode, it drops out the dark values. If you use overlay, that drops out the lighter values. And then if we go here, let's just adjust this potency of this and make that back to 30. All right, so now it's kind of doing this nice kind of subtle wash over our clip. You can also do something. Let me just go here to this clip. I wouldn't do it on the nest. I would do it more on one of these, and I'll show you that in the end here, is that you can actually adjust the color profile of your existing video. Even if you know it wasn't shot with Canon, but Canon looks interesting, you can use that as well, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But if I were to go here and just kind of adjust these values, see the green? So you imagine this is all the different colors of the rainbow. You can adjust each value to kind of highlight part of your screen. And then I can also go in here and you can keyframe all of these. All right, so if we go to Spectralicious and just look at how many of these, each one of them has a keyframe. So you can create a pretty interesting, branded effect. If you wanted to match branding colors, you can go in here and just click right here. And then you won't see it because my screen is stubborn, but now I'm able to drag it back over and you can choose, or you can even have all your favorite sampled colors living right here. If you're on a PC, this will look a little bit different, but on the Mac, you have all these different ways to play with color. And now you even have like this box of colored pencils, right? Everybody loves colored pencils. Again, I'm not giving you the elementary version of this. Let's go back to the color wheel, and you can kind of set these and kind of put them inside of here. So as you go through and you like this shade of blue, it lives there. If I like this shade of green, it lives there, right? And then you can always just quickly hop to these. So again, that's just using the color picker. So besides this, right, if you were to go and kind of scroll through any of this, there are more blend modes. So this is how the effect actually blends in, right? And you can adjust post saturation. So you can actually really saturate this and even pump up these values here. Now, before I even do that, let's just change this back to 100% so I can show you what it's doing before we're using those pixel values. I'm going to show it to you just as Spectralicious by itself. So if I go here, right, post saturation, and even the exposure of that effect, right? And you can see what that does to your screen here. So think about this. Even, go in and you can change these colors. You can use different types of colors, or even just kind of pull those colors out so they don't really have any value if you want. And you can change the location of any of those colors. So think about adding light in post. Think about highlighting in post, or even adjusting the spread of how these pop up. So this can be very useful when you use it on top of a clip. Again, I've already done this. There's a preset. Let's see if it pops up here. Still won't let my preset pop up on my main screen. So that's fun. But I don't need to show you that because I'm sure we've seen it before. And let's just uncheck that version. And let's put this one back. And this is kind of what that looks like when you're highlighting it. And it's to kind of look like light leaks on film. So if I were to adjust this, change that back to 30, let's change this and let's put it in add mode. Let's put that in overlay. All right. And now it's very subtle. Right. So you can, or even soft light. And you can even make that pulse if you wanted to, and kind of change the way that is by maybe even animating this saturation, or animating this right here. See this post exposure? Kind of just go back and forth and make it look like there are light leaks there, even though they're not there. Right? And all this is basically putting color on top and matching, and just kind of highlighting those pixels and doing a blend mode on top. But it gives you the idea of light leaks or something that looks similar to film. So that's the idea for that. Let's see, I'll go down the timeline here, and I want to showcase a couple of effects while we still have a minute or so. Were there any questions in the meantime? I don't see anything in the chat. Hello, Darren. And let's just go in here, and I'm going to show you a couple of these effects. I'll go right here to the effect browser, and let's just point out some of the fun effects that we can do, such as carousel. All right, Chroma Town is pretty awesome, but Chroma Town is one of these effects that has about 1 million sliders on it. So if you have the time, you can make some really interesting looking stuff with Chroma Town. But just know that there are presets to get you to a good spot. Also, Noir, the overlight, one of my personal favorites, where you can mock up the idea of creating light leaks. Retrograde, right? And of course, everybody loves the VHS, right? We loved moving away from VHS to DVD, but now we love going back to VHS, right? And speaking, I think Blockbuster's making a comeback. In case you could go to their website, I think it's live now. So anyway, the some of the fun effects here, and let me just hint at what I was telling you about before. So some of these clips, right, I have, and if you go to the information about these clips, this clip was shot with a Sony, right? And this is, every single clip will have this option for camera LUT. So by default, when you have none, it looks a little bit flat because this is what was shot, right? But if you want to utilize the existing color profiles and you want things to pop, you can play around with this camera LUT. This is just under the eye for information inside of your inspector, right? And see how it's registered as 709. But let me go here to camera LUT, and let's change this. And let's look, what happens, what would it look like if I make it in Canon log? What does it look like? It was definitely shot with Sony, and I want to say it was shot with this Gamma 3, right? So now that kind of calibrates our footage. It makes it look a little bit better as far as calibrating it to what it was supposed to look like in the first place. But you can play with this, Arri log C, and it's basically adjusting your gamma curve, and it's giving you a whole different look based on this. So you can use this creatively, or you can use this technically, and depending on who you're delivering this project to, if you're getting paid to do it technically, then you don't want to play too much and stray away from what it was shot with. But these right here were transcoded. As you can see, these are ProRes, right? These were transcoded. So It'll still matter, but at the same time, you could play around with this or even add a custom LUT. So, are there any questions? I think I'm right here at the top of the hour.
Exactly.
And,
I think we're
feel-
hitting the top of the hour already, Tony.
all right.
Ooh. Well, thank you so much, Tony, for giving us this, sharing with us this tips and tricks inside Final Cut Pro. Let me just share my screen. So next Monday, yeah, it seems like this is it with Universe. We reached the final session today with Tony, and make sure if you have like any questions, make sure to write us at training@maxon.net. And if you want to catch up with the recording, you can do so by going to YouTube and searching for Maxon Training Team. And there you can find in the playlist that there are plenty of demystifying post-productions webinars recorded. And what's nice with those recordings, they are timestamped. So if you want to go directly into the topic that you're looking for, you can just skip the blabbering, me blabbering in the beginning of the video, and then just go straight to the topics. And those timestamps are provided by Dr. Sasi. Thank you so much for spending your time and donating your time to put the timestamps to help us navigate the massive library of the webinars in our
Thank you,
channel.
Dr. Sasi.
And also make sure next Monday to join Dustin and Lionel to learn how to make your 3D renders pop. And to see the events, you can go to the maxon.net/events. And if you browse all the events happening at Maxon, you'll see that there will be the Mystifying Post Productions for April the 3rd, right? And make sure to visit the Dropbox links in the YouTube descriptions. And there you can get like all the important links to get your t-shirts, your beanies, and
T-shirts.
the hat. Yeah. And yeah, the links and then the password to enter the shop is provided in the PDF links, PDF file. So make sure you check that out. And again, if you want to check out Universe, go to maxon.net, products, and Universe, and there you'll be able to see all the like hundreds of tools available in Universe. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. And Tony, thank you very much for sharing your tips and tricks with us. And until next time, have a nice day and see you again. Goodbye.